Dawn of the dreadful silence. The forest was shrouded in a chilling stillness as the first light of dawn struggled to break through an impenetrable curtain of dark, towering pines. In that quiet, lonely expanse, a lone wolf tilted its head, back, inhaling deeply. The air was heavy, laced with an unnerving scent, a metallic tang that clung to the night like a ghost. Every breath carried the faint, bitter trace of blood, stirring a dark premonition within him. The sound of his low, mournful whine cut across the silence, a desperate cry to the echoing wilderness. For a moment, time seemed to slow down, every detail etched into his memory like the delicate brushstrokes of a tragic painting. The thick coat of his midnight black fur merged with the murky shadows beneath the pines. Silvery moonlight, filtered by the swaying branches, danced softly over his form, turning the very outline of his body into a moving silhouette. It was as if nature herself had decided to cloak him in mystery, a creature half of light and half of darkness, carrying an untold story in every breath. In the distance, beyond the veil of trees, a faint glow emerged from the edge of a clearing. The wolf's keen eyes narrowed as he discerned the outline of what once must have been a gathering place. A neighbor pack's home now reduced to a haunting memory. His heart pounded with a mix of dread and an inexplicable hope. Each snuffle of the wind seemed to whisper secrets of what had been lost. That sinister aroma and the ghostly light conjured in him images of both beauty and decay. As he made his way forward, each cautious step stirring the brittle leaves underfoot, the silence grew even more oppressive, laden with invisible sorrows. The forest, which on any other night might have brimmed with the chorus of life, now felt like a mausoleum of memories. He remembered a time when the woods echoed with laughter and the harmonious calls of a thriving pack. Now, every shadow told, a tale of brutality and loss, a cruel, quiet requiem for the fallen. The wolf's mind swirled with conflicted emotions, a potent blend of anguish and determination. Every instinct in him warned of danger, yet another part of him pined for the reconnection with kin, whose voices he had not heard in what felt like an eternity. Amid the creeping silence, his very soul seemed to ache for connection, for some sign of life among the vast remnants of devastation. Yet, each passing moment made the night seem darker, as if nature itself was mourning with him. In that magnetic, sorrow-laden atmosphere, the interplay of light and dark, life and death, began to form a story far more intricate than the mere passing of time. The wolf paused and gazed around, attuned to the subtle shifts in the air, as if trying to decipher a language only nature could speak. His ears caught the faintest rustle, a sound that was almost musical in its sadness, and he felt the pang of isolation more deeply than ever before. Was it a whisper of hope, or the echo of a long-forgotten dirge? The imposing silence was suddenly pierced by a distant, heart-wrenching cry that reverberated from deep within the forest. It was a cry so pure, so full of sorrow, that it halted his trembling steps. In that moment, he knew his mission was greater than his own grief. He must find the truth behind this lament, seek out any trace of life beyond the carnage. The intensity of the moment surged within him, a promise that the remnants of his lost kin were not yet completely swallowed by the despair of the night. This mysterious call, vibrating with both melancholy and urgency, stirred something profound. Inside him, a call to arms, a call to remember. It evoked an inner battle, a tumultuous war between resignation and rebellion, between the desire to withdraw into the shadows and the relentless pull to reconnect with the precious legacy of his pack. With each beat of his heart, the forest seemed to breathe in tandem with him, a slow, haunting rhythm that underscored the fragile balance of life and death. As the horizon darkened and the vestiges of moonlight gave way to the timid arrival of dawn, the scene was set for an epic tale of survival and rebirth. In the interplay of whispered grief and resolute determination, a new chapter was about to be written. The lone wolf, a solitary embodiment of both sorrow and fierce hope, was poised on the brink of a journey that would call into question the very essence of loyalty, love, and destiny. Aftermath of a fallen pack. The clearing lay in a state of morbid stillness, a vast and desolate stage where the mighty had once thrived, now reduced to a haunting collage of shattered existence. The ground, damp and heavy underfoot, was strewn with the remains of packs that had once roared through these woods with relentless pride and strength. Limbs and pelt fragments were haphazardly scattered across the sodden earth, each a silent testament to the fierce struggle that had ended in devastation. The iron tang of blood permeated the air, an overwhelming aroma that smothered the senses and left one gasping for reprieve. As the early light of dawn struggled against the encroaching night, the wolf stood motionless at the edge of this grisly tableau. His eyes, once bright with the fire of kinship and loyalty, now shimmered with a deep, unspoken sorrow. Every step he had taken toward the clearing felt as if it were etched by agonizing permanence. The smell of rust and blood hung around him, like a shroud, igniting memories of relentless battles and heart-wrenching losses. He paused, his chest rising and falling in heavy, labored breaths as he surveyed the carnage. The silence that followed was thick with the weight of tragedy. A silence so profound that even the rustle of dying leaves seemed like a desperate whisper among the echoes of the lost. In this mournful quiet, every broken limb, every dark smear marking the ground, testified not only to battles fought, but also to the fall of once proud warriors. His body trembled involuntarily, a physical reaction to the shock and grief coursing through him. Stricken by the gruesome scene, the wolf's inner tumult mirrored the devastation before him. His heart pounded as if trying to drown out the incessant reminder of mortality, and in his eyes, a storm of regret and desperation swirled. He felt as though each gust of wind that swept across the clearing was laden with the cries of the fallen, a symphony of mourning that touched the very soul of the wilderness. His throat constricted with an almost unbearable grief, and he fought to control the rising tide of anguish threatening to break over him like a tidal wave. It was in this moment of overwhelming sorrow and disbelief that an eerie, solitary howl shattered the oppressive silence. The sound, a piercing cry that carried both immense sadness and resilient defiance, rippled through the clearing, sending a shiver down his spine. That single howl was a reminder that even in the midst of such carnage, life might still echo, faintly in the recesses of the wild. Its haunting cadence rose and fell like the pulse of the wilderness, creating an ominous undertone that resonated deep within him. In that split second, everything felt charged with an unsettling energy, as if the howl were calling forth both the ghosts of the past and the promise of the unknown future. The wolf's senses were overloaded with the shock of what he saw, i.e., place once vibrant with the heritage and strength of his kin, now unrecognizable, a graveyard for heroes and free spirits. The sight of scattered, once proud bodies, their legacy reduced to mere fragments clinging to the wet earth, stirred a potent mixture of fury and despair within him. His eyes welled up with tears that were nearly too heavy to shed. As the solitude of the aftermath settled in his mind, the wolf could not help but question the cruel turns of fate that had led him here. How had the pride and unity of these packs been so brutally undone in a single night? What dark force or treacherous enemy had managed to strike such a devastating blow against the once united front of these formidable beings? He wondered if, perhaps, there remained any survivors hidden in the shadows, any kin who had not succumbed to the relentless tide of violence. Even as his heart bled with grief, the ember of determination within him began to glow anew. The scream of that lone howl sent a ripple through his soul, urging him to seek answers and to confront the peril that had torn through the very fabric of their existence. Now, as he stood amidst the echoes of devastation, a question hung heavy, in the air, thick with mystery and raw emotion. What fate awaits the remnants of the fallen pack? And will the sacrifice of these warriors forge a pathway for a new dawn? In this clearing, soaked in blood and sorrow, one thing remained undeniable: a burning need for justice and renewal. The wolf's heart raged with the desire not only to honor the memory of those lost, but also to challenge the dark forces that had dared to defile the sanctity of their once mighty legacy. And as the first rays of sunlight began to pierce the gloom, he silently vowed the truth behind this tragedy would be unearthed, and the spirit of the fallen would rise once more to reclaim their place in the eternal dance of life and death. What will become of this shattered world, and who will have the strength to rise from its ashes? The silence of the aftermath begs this question. Will you dare to a beacon of hope? In the thick silence of the aftermath, the wolf's mournful howl cut sharply through the still air, a cry that rang out as a desperate call to his scattered kin. It was a sound loaded with both anguish and fierce resolve, echoing into the cold morning mist, as if bearing the promise of salvation from the darkness that had enveloped their world. That solitary cry ignited the dormant embers of loyalty and courage within every heart, touched by its raw emotion. Slowly, as if summoned by an invisible force, figures began to emerge from the shadows of the towering pines. One by one, the pack members advanced silently along the forest floor, their forms ghost-like in the shifting light. They moved with a solemn grace, a blend of wild instinct and disciplined purpose, each wolf drawn to the beacon of that solitary howl. There was a palpable sense of unity as they converged upon the clearing, their eyes reflecting both sorrow for what had been lost and determination for what must be fought for. Amid the gathering, a figure slowly stepped forward from the deeper shade of the trees, a presence that combined the primal power of the wolf with an unmistakable hint of human vulnerability. The leader, later revealed as a man who could so effortlessly shift into his wolf form, stood tall with a grim expression etched into his weathered face. He approached the grieving assembly with a measured step, his eyes tracking each tear and twitch of hurt among his pack. His arrival brought a stillness as palpable as the sorrow that lingered, a solemn reassurance that they were not alone in their agony. In that quiet, heart-stopping moment, the leader knelt beside a mourning wolf, whose eyes shimmered with the shock of witnessing unimaginable loss. With a tenderness that belied his fierce exterior, he placed a gentle hand on the grieving wolf's shoulder, silently conveying that their pain was shared, that their collective heart would mend even if it meant enduring the sting of memory. He spoke softly, words that seemed to float above the murmur of grief, reminding each soul that though the night had been dark and filled with sorrow, a new day was on the horizon. The duality of these beings was now on striking display. Here were warriors, terrifying in their raw, feral strength, a pack that could tear apart its foes with a mere snarl or a devastating swipe. Yet within those same wild eyes were depths of emotion, compassion, and tender humanity. The leader's gentle ministrations toward the heartbroken pack were a living paradox, as if nature's merciless rigor and delicate sensitivity had found balance in a single soul. His presence commanded respect, not merely because of his formidable strength, but because of As the pack gathered closer in collective mourning, the man in wolf form spoke of a renewed sense of unity. His words were few, but they resonated powerfully against the backdrop of the clearing's macabre display. Every pair of eyes in the assembled group was fixed on him, drawn into a shared silence that trembled with the tension of unspoken hopes and desperate promises. It was a moment that set the stage for a transformation in their destiny, a turning point where the memory of the fallen would serve as both a shroud and a rallying cry. As the scene unfolded, viewers are left with a poignant question. How would this profound tragedy, marked by blood and loss, reshape the destiny of the pack? With every cautious step the mourning wolves took, the balance between ferocity and fragility grew ever more delicate. Could they recover their lost strength? Would the arrival of these steadfast allies unlock within them a deeper resolve to protect their legacy and to fight for a future where their kin were not only survivors, but symbols of rebirth? The interplay of light and shadow in the clearing now took on a symbolic meaning, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, a glimmer of hope could be found. As the first fragile rays of dawn filtered through the trees, they illuminated the moist ground where the scars of battle were etched, merging the harsh reality of loss with the tender promise of renewal. The leader's compassionate care was like a quiet vow that the honor of the fallen would not be in vain, that from this desolation, their pack could rise again, stronger and more unified than ever before. This touching convergence of grief and hope sparked within the viewer a deep curiosity. How would the survivors rebuild their bonds? What new challenges would arise in the wake of such profound loss? And could the strength of their shared spirit ultimately vanquish the encroaching darkness? Each heartbeat of the pack resonated with these questions, inviting everyone to ponder the true cost of survival and the timeless human and werewolf struggle against fate. In that moment of suspended silence, filled with the heavy aroma of blood and the tender rhythm of hopeful hearts, the path forward began to emerge. The tragedy of the fallen pack was not an end, but a bitter catalyst for transformation, an emotional crucible that would forge the future of a family defined by both its brutality and its capacity for love. And as the clearing bathed in the gentle caress of dawn, the lone howl faded into a promise. From beast to man, in an instant that defied the natural order, the relentless passage of time seemed to shudder as the transformation began. The wolf, tall, formidable, and steeped in raw grief, stopped amid the chaos of blood and scattered. Remains, his body trembling with an energy both primal and profound. A deep, echoing crack resonated through the clearing as his bones started to snap and reshape, each fracturing sound mingling with the cold air of the early dawn. It was as if the very essence of the creature was being rewoven from the fiber of the earth itself. The muscular form of the beast contorted and shuddered, tendons and sinew working in a chaotic ballet as ancient, almost mystical forces pulled at him. The metamorphosis was abrupt and jarring, a fusion of terror and awe. His fur began to fade away in patches, the dark cloak that had once embodied the wilderness receding until nothing remained but bare skin. With every snap of a bone, the sheer brutality of nature's process was laid bare. The surreal, almost cinematic moment unfolded slowly, as if each second were suspended in time, urging every spectator to take in the impossible spectacle. And then, before the stunned eyes of the mourners and the silent congregation of his pack, the wolf's transformation reached its climax. From where the creature had once stood, emerged a man, stark naked as the day he was born, his body honed and scarred by battles past. He carried the quiet, grim weight of his recent memories, a figure whose features were cast in sorrow and determination. His expression was one of somber resolve, a silent vow to honor the fallen and secure a future amid the brutal remnants of their existence. The shock of witnessing this metamorphosis gripped everyone around like a tempest. Here was a leader reborn from the shadows of a beast, a living embodiment of both feral power and human vulnerability. His eyes, now human in form, shimmered with a deep-seated melancholy that bespoke unspoken loss, yet they also radiated a raw, indomitable will. As he slowly rose to his full height, the solemn stillness of the clearing was punctured only by the quiet, deliberate steps of his advancing presence. The transformation had rendered him more than just a wolf leader. It had become a symbol of hope amidst despair, a physical representation of the pack's resilience. Without the thick black fur to hide under, his skin glowed with the pallor of the battlefield, a canvas on which every mark told a story of survival and sacrifice. Despite his ragged appearance, the man's aura was commanding, and even the elements seemed to acknowledge his emergence. The crisp, cold air mingled with his subtle, musky scent, a testament to the fleeting nature of his wolf. His leader's gaze swept across the scene, taking in the ruined tapestry of a once mighty pack, now reduced to scattered limbs and haunting silhouettes. In that moment, shock and responsibility warred within him, fueling a determination to act. With the shock of his own transformation still fresh in his mind, he drew a deep, steadying breath, solidifying his resolve. This was a turning point, a moment where the possibility of redemption shone like a fragile spark amid the overwhelming darkness. Rising from the ground with newfound purpose, the man addressed his gathered pack with few deliberate words. His voice, though rough from the pain of rebirth, carried an unwavering authority. "We have lost many tonight," he began, each word weighted with sorrow and fierce determination. "But we cannot allow this tragedy to define us. We must stand together and search for any survivors, secure our territory, and ensure that the legacy of our fallen is honored." His words echoed in the silence, reverberating with promise and resolve. As he spoke, his eyes, deep pools, reflecting both human empathy and the lingering wildness of his former self, scanned the horizon. Every line of his face was a roadmap of challenges overcome and battles yet to be fought. The dual nature of his existence, the unbridled ferocity of a wolf intertwined with the reflective depth of a human spirit, was now laid bare. It was, in that delicate interplay between raw instinct and careful planning, that the fate of the pack would ultimately be decided. He stepped forward into the blood-stained clearing, no longer a creature of shadows, but a beacon in the dawn. His transformation had not dulled the intensity of his grief. Instead, it sharpened his focus. With the first rays of a timid sunrise starting to reclaim the darkness, he moved with purpose towards the fringes of the devastated territory. Every step was heavy with the unspoken promise to rebuild, to honor those who were lost, and to stand as the vanguard against any threat that dared encroach upon their sacred lands. And now, the question lingers in the hearts of all who witnessed this miraculous change. Can the strength born of transformation and sorrow pave the way for renewal? Will this reborn leader, stripped down to the very essence of his being, be the guiding? Scouring the Carnage, the newly transformed leader led his pack as they dispersed quietly into the dismal remains of the battleground, each step a testament to their collective determination amid the overwhelming grief. The forest floor was soaked in blood, the heavy scent of iron mingling with the damp earth as the pack moved cautiously among the wreckage. Each member's pace was measured yet urgent, driven by the desperate hope that somewhere among the scattered remnants, a spark of life might have survived the brutality of the night. The journey took them through territories that once pulsed with life and the wild calls of unity, now transformed into eerie expanses of desolation. Abandoned homes, simple wooden structures that had once sheltered families of werewolves, now stood silent and broken, their walls marked by crimson stains and ominous scratches. The sight of shattered glass and splintered wood heightened the sense of ruin that pervaded the air, while the bitter cold dawn further sharpened the stinging reality of loss. As the pack carefully moved through these blood-drenched landscapes, each step was laden with memories of valor and the weight of forgotten hope. Their eyes darted warily between the dense trees and the scarred remains of what used to be vibrant homes, every sound and rustle in the underbrush amplifying the tension of their search. The only consistent sound was the quiet shuffle of paws and the soft, desperate breathing of those who clung to the hope of discovering even a glimmer of life amid the silence. In the midst of this morose odyssey, the leader's gaze was fixed on every detail. A broken fence post, a torn piece of cloth fluttering in the cold breeze, each fragment a somber reminder of the once thriving world that had been reduced to mere shadows. His heart, still pounding with the echo of his transformation, was troubled by a gnawing sense of urgency. Every member of his pack was driven by the shared understanding that the carnage was not just a symbol of tragedy, but also an omen, heralding the ever-looming threat of the enemy, the rogues. The presence of the rogues, notorious for their brutality and relentless aggression, was an unspoken terror that haunted every step the pack took. Amid the silence, there was always a lingering question of whether danger still lurked in the darkness beyond the clearing. The pack moved with heightened alertness, every twitch of an ear or rustle of leaves stirring deep-seated instincts for survival. The leader's instincts, honed by transformation and the primal urgency of his dual nature, urged him to search every shadow as though the slightest sound might signal both hope and an imminent threat. Their journey took them across a grim expanse where every abandoned homestead, every scattered relic of a once mighty pack, whispered secrets of violence and despair. The desperate urgency to find survivors was mixed with the stark realization that the path ahead was riddled with memories of battles past, where honor and kinship were etched in the blood of fallen warriors. As the pack traced their route through these ghostly remnants, the trail led into even more desolate territory. The silence, pierced only by the occasional cry of a distant bird or the mournful gust of wind through broken windows, was almost too thick to bear. In its oppressive stillness, the pack members exchanged uncertain glances, silently questioning whether the search would yield even a single spark of life. Every sweep of the leader's keen eyes over the ruined landscape seemed to draw forth more questions than answers. Had the killer force swept through completely? Were there any brave souls left to testify of the terrible night? The thought of the rogues possibly returning to scavenge the barren field added another layer of urgency and dread that clung to their every step. As the pack ventured deeper into the carnage, the anticipation slowly turned to grim inevitability. Despite their efforts, meticulously checking every dark recess of the abandoned homes, skirting around every suspicious corner, and calling softly into the stagnant air, the search grew increasingly somber. It became painfully evident that there were no survivors to be found, no flicker of life amid the shattered dreams and remnants of a once glorious lineage. The crushing reality set in like lead. What had once been a testament to strength and unity was now nothing more than haunting memories etched into the very soil. In this moment of cruel clarity, the air itself seemed to weep with the sorrow of all that was lost, and the leader's heart, heavy with regret and resolve, pounded with renewed determination. His mind raced with the implications of this devastating truth, a truth that would forever redefine the future of the pack. How would they rebuild from such profound loss? Could they harness this sorrow and transform it into the strength required to secure their territory against further devastation? With the finality of the realization echoing in the silence, the pack began a slow, somber retreat from the blood-stained clearing. Their collective grief was palpable, a shared burden that tempered their fierce resolve with a quiet, painful vulnerability. The grim memories of the fallen weighed heavily on their souls, and yet, even amid the desolation, there was the seed of a new beginning, a silent, desperate promise that in the face of such crushing loss, they would rise once more. Now, as the pack slowly gathered to make their way back, one cannot help but wonder, how will this overwhelming tragedy, wrought by cold-hearted violence and the shadow of the rogues, shape the future of these mighty wolves? And what new chapter awaits them as they... A funeral for the fallen. Under a sky heavy with sorrow and dimming light, the pack gathered in a wide, barren clearing, a natural amphitheater scarred by the brutal conflict. Here, in the midst of overwhelming grief, they set about their solemn ritual, building a massive pyre to honor the memory of their fallen allies. The air vibrated with an eerie mixture of despair, reverence, and the fierce determination to rise again, despite the staggering cost of loss. The ritual began quietly, as each member of the pack approached the construction site with measured steps. They carried the remnants of what once had been revered warriors, their tattered cloaks, the broken vestiges of armor, and even fragments of personal trinkets that spoke of lives rich in honor and valor. Together, they arranged these relics atop the scattered bodies and remains, setting the stage for a final goodbye. The careful precision with which they laid the pieces spoke of a deep-seated belief that every loss was not simply an ending, but a memory to be cherished and a legacy to be continued. As the pyre took shape, the pack's leader, a man who had once been a mighty wolf and now stood unadorned in the light of bare humanity, stepped forward. His eyes, glistening with unshed tears, scanned the gathered forms of his pack. He raised his voice, soft yet resolute, and recited words steeped in the ancient lore of their kind. His tone blended the raw melancholy of personal pain with a timeless call to unity, as if each word was a promise carved from the depths of his heart. In that moment, the ritual transformed into a living memorial, as every soul present bore witness to the sacrifice of kin and the unbreakable bond that carried them through war. The pyre was ignited slowly. With the first flickers of flame, the remnants of their fallen comrades began to glow orange against the encroaching twilight. The flames roared to life, devouring the piles of relics and remains, and casting dancing shadows across the faces of the pack. The intense heat mixed with the cool night air, creating an almost surreal sensation. The flames symbolized both the violence that had extinguished their lives and a purifying force that promised renewal. Each burst of fire seemed to capture the essence of the lost, releasing the heavy sorrow they had endured while also lighting a small beacon of hope for what might yet come. The sound of crackling wood and the whoosh of fire merged with the low, sonorous howls of the pack, a chorus of mourning that resonated like a dirge. It was as if the flames themselves absorbed every ounce of grief and turned it into a raw, burning determination to survive. In that hypnotic moment, the pack stood united, their collective pain and resolve reflected in the mesmerizing fury of the fire. The flames leaped higher, etching the silhouettes of the fallen against the night sky, while amid the steady roar of the pyre, the leader paused, his expression softening as he reflected silently on the legacy of those who had passed. He remembered the faces of brave warriors, the strength of hearts that had dared to fight for their pack, and the kindness that once animated the bonds of brotherhood. This memory weighed on him like a sacred burden, a reminder that every life taken in the struggle for survival now lived on in the stories that would define their future. The ritual was not just a farewell, but a reaffirmation of the values they held dear: courage, loyalty, and an unyielding commitment to one another. In that reflective stillness, the leader's gaze swept over the glowing pyre, and he posed a haunting question that seemed to echo through the hearts of every pack member, and now, through the ears of those watching. What is the true cost of war? And how many souls must we sacrifice before we learn to cherish every life as a gift? The words hung in the charged air, inviting each listener to ponder the immense sacrifices that had been made. They were urged to reflect on the burden of loss and the valor required to rise anew from the ashes of conflict. As the ritual continued, the intensity of the moment grew even further. The flames, now a fierce amalgamation of passion and sorrow, illuminated the faces of the pack members with a harsh, unforgiving light. Each tear shed, every quiet sob, and every fierce, mournful howl contributed to the overall atmosphere. Heavy tapestry woven with the threads of grief and a simmering, resolute determination to forge a future from the remnants of what was lost. The leader, his voice now a low murmur, concluded the ceremony with a final, stirring declaration. Though we have lost many tonight, let this fire be our vow. Every spark of this pyre burns as a reminder of our fallen, and from these ashes we shall rise. We will remember their sacrifice and continue to fight, for every scar and every tear is a testament to our strength and our unwavering bond. His words, filled with both the weight of loss and the promise of rebirth, resonated deeply in the hearts of all who had gathered. In that solitary, relentless moment, As the fire consumed what remained of a fallen past, the pack was left with the grim realization that there were no survivors among their beloved kin, only haunting memories and the echo of their sacrifices. Yet, even as the final embers glowed in the dim light, there burned an unmistakable resolve to honor those lost by ensuring that the future of their pack. A white wolf among shadows. In the midst of the lingering sorrow and echoing silence that had settled over the blood-stained clearing, an unfamiliar cry suddenly pierced the night. A sound so soft and yet so piercing that it halted the mourning procession. The cry emerged from the pack house, a structure still scarred by loss and grief. For a fleeting moment, time appeared to suspend, and every heart in the pack skipped a beat, collectively straining to identify the origin of the sound. It was as if the very air trembled with a secret waiting to be revealed. Slowly, and with the hesitancy of someone stepping into a realm between myth and reality, the source of the cry revealed itself. A lone pup, no older than a few months, was standing at the doorstep of the pack house. What made the pup even more extraordinary was the otherworldly quality of its fur. Amidst the smudges and splatters of blood that marred its delicate form, its coat shone with an immaculate, snow-white brilliance, a stark contrast against the dark, carnage-soaked landscape. The white fur, luminous in the fading light, evoked images of ancient legends and long-forgotten prophecies whispered among elders. A swell of disbelief and wonder spread silently among the pack. Eyes widened as each member stared at the improbable vision. Here, at the edge of despair and death, was this rare, almost mythic creature. A white wolf, an enigma in a realm where such beings were spoken of in hushed tones, if at all. The pup's cry, though soft, resonated deeply within every heart, sparking questions that had long been buried under layers of loss. Could it be that the legends were true? Was it possible that the white wolf, the one believed to possess exceptional strength, heightened senses, and the power to quicken the healing of those around it, still existed among them? The pack, struck by the appearance of the pup, was momentarily overcome by a reverent silence. Many of them exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from shock to awe. Whispers of ancient lore seemed to stir, recollections of fabled white wolves said to be carriers of destiny and harbingers of renewal. In this moment, the usual hierarchy and order of the pack seemed to blur, replaced by a sense of collective wonder. The very presence of the white wolf felt charged with an energy that defied explanation, a symbol of hope, of regeneration emerging from the darkness. Questions bubbled in the minds of every member. What did this mysterious white pup signify for the future of the pack? Was it a sign that the balance of power was about to shift, that a new era of strength and possibility might be dawning? Or perhaps it was simply a solitary reminder of resilience, a living embodiment of the fact that life could still flourish amidst death. Among all the members of the pack, none were more contemplative than the leader himself. His transformation from beast to man had been a poignant rebirth, a symbol of both profound loss and the hope for renewal. Now, as he regarded the small figure emerging hesitantly from the doorway, his eyes, heavy with previous sorrow and newfound resolve, softened. Every detail of the pup, its tentative stance, the glistening white fur, the way it seemed to shiver under the weight of its own fragility, spoke volumes. It was as though the pup carried within it a deep, ineffable message, one that transcended words and expectations, speaking to the eternal cycles of life, death, and resurrection that govern their world. Gingerly, the leader advanced toward the lone creature. Each step was measured, filled with a cautious tenderness born of both his human empathy and his deep-rooted wolf instinct. The pack, momentarily united in their shared awe and uncertainty, watched in respectful silence as their leader reached the threshold of the pack house. His posture was one of quiet authority intertwined with vulnerability, a delicate balance between feral instinct and human compassion. With every step, the oppressive atmosphere of despair seemed to waver, as if the pup's unexpected arrival had initiated a subtle yet irrevocable shift in the dynamics of the night. As he neared the pup, the leader's eyes glistened under the weight of unspoken promises. Reaching out with a trembling hand, he slowly extended his fingers toward the white-coated youngling. The scene was breathtaking in its quiet intensity. The leader's gesture was both an offer of sanctuary and an acknowledgement of the mysteries that fate had woven into this miraculous appearance. In that suspended moment of fragile contact, where human warmth met the untouched innocence of the white pup, a silent question hung in the air, inviting every viewer to ponder. What new destiny would this rare, luminous creature usher into the pack? In that charged instant, the leader's gentle touch on the pup's head was not merely an act of care. It was a symbolic gesture of hope, a promise to nurture and protect that which was unexpected and extraordinary. The mystery of the white wolf, its sacred significance whispered in the annals of time, now beckoned the pack toward an uncertain future. With the leader's careful tenderness, this enigmatic creature became not just a solitary survivor amid a bond of family and destiny. In the hushed aftermath of loss and devastation, something unexpected stirred the hearts of the pack. At the edge of the clearing, where sorrow still clung like a heavy mist, the alpha knelt beside the white wolf, pup. His eyes, filled with both grief and gentle hope, softened as they met the luminous gaze of this miraculous survivor. The pup's coat, untouched by darkness and tarnish, shone like fresh snow amid a landscape scarred by loss, almost as if it carried within it the promise of a new dawn. Slowly, as if afraid to disturb the fragile peace, the alpha reached out, his calloused hand toward the little creature. His fingers trembled slightly as they brushed against the pup's silken fur, and in that tender moment, the air around them seemed to hold its breath. It was a simple gesture, but spoke volumes. A silent promise to care, protect, and love. The wolf's gentle nuzzle in response broke the tense stillness, as if acknowledging that fate had woven a new thread into the tapestry of their lives, a thread that would tie them together as kin. The white wolf pup, tiny yet resilient, looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes, and the alpha could almost see the echo of all that had been lost reflected there. In the soft exchange of warmth and scent, he felt a deep stirring, a realization that this creature was not merely a survivor, but a symbol of miraculous endurance. Its presence seemed to radiate an aura of healing and strength, promising that, even in the face of overwhelming grief and carnage, life could find a way to flourish. The bond they shared in that instant felt destined, transcending the mere instinct of survival. It was as if the moon goddess herself had sent this white wolf as a harbinger of renewed hope. The pup embodied the extraordinary, its gleaming coat, its clear, untroubled eyes, and in it, the alpha recognized an invitation to rebuild not just a pack, but a family. He softly murmured words that carried the weight of promise and fate. "You are not alone, little one. We are family." The simple declaration was meant both for the pup and for every heart that listened, echoing through the silent trees and the wounded land around them. As the alpha gently cradled the pup, his voice became a soft, steady cadence that was both soothing and resolute. Your strength is the light that guides us forward. Your survival is a miracle that defies the darkness, and it is a sign that even in our deepest despair, new life can emerge. This bond we form, this sacred bond, is our destiny. We will heal, we will grow stronger, and together, we will overcome the pain of our past. In that moment, the atmosphere was charged with a fragile optimism. The pup's presence reminded every member of the pack that love and loyalty run deeper than the scars of battle. It was a living testament that family is not determined solely by the tragedies that have befallen us, but by the bonds we forge in the wake of those tragedies. Every howl, every quiet nod among the pack, spoke of a commitment to honor the Alpha's heart, still aching from previous wounds, swelled with determination as he gazed into the pure eyes of the pup. He saw in them not only the reflection of his own soul, but also the hope for a future where the memory of lost kin would not be overshadowed by endless grief. "From these ashes, we build anew," he declared softly, his voice steady even as tears shimmered in the corners of his eyes. "We will honor the past by embracing the future, and through our unity, we will show that the ties of kinship are unbreakable." The scene that unfolded was both intimate and monumental. The Alpha and his newfound little companion sat together as the rest of the pack slowly gathered around them. Even those who had been hardened by the brutality of recent events could not help but feel a spark of compassion and renewal as they witnessed this tender moment. A quiet murmur of agreement passed among the pack members, uniting them in a shared vision, one where even the smallest among them had a role in ensuring the legacy of their kin lived on. With his hand still resting on the pup's head, the Alpha spoke again, now addressing not just the little wolf before him, but also every soul in his pack. "We are bound by more than mere survival. Our destiny is written in the strength we find together. Let every heartbeat remind us of the power of love, the healing of compassion, and the magic of a bond that transcends even death." His words, humble yet filled with unwavering conviction, resonated deeply among all who heard them. The promise in his tone was clear. A promise that even in the aftermath of horror, hope could be reborn, and that every member of the pack, no matter how wounded, was an integral part of this family. In that profound and moving moment, a new chapter began to take shape. A chapter defined by resilience, unity, and the extraordinary power of a bond that could turn even the pain of loss into the strength needed to carry forward. The Alpha, the white wolf pup, and every member of the pack shared a renewed sense of purpose, and together, they forged ahead into a future where kinship, loyalty, and destiny would prevail. "We are family," he whispered one final time, letting the words echo into the cool night. Memories in the moonlight. 8 years have passed since that fateful night, yet the moon still casts its silvery glow on Laura's heart, stirring memories as enduring as the winter's chill. In this reflective montage, we step quietly into her world, a sanctuary of reminiscence where every gust of wind and every beam of sunlight whispers stories of loss, survival, and the unyielding spirit of guardianship that has defined her life. Laura stands alone on a desolate hilltop, the wind stirring her dark hair as it carries with it the distant echoes of a once thriving pack. With eyes lifted to the full moon, she recalls the haunting sound of a lone howl, a sorrowful cry that mirrored the anguish and hope of that long-ago night. Now, as the cool breeze brushes her skin, it carries not only the chill of winter, but the soft caress of a recollection, gently reminding her of the days when grief and resilience walked hand in hand. In that distant past, Laura was forced to confront the cruel realities of loss. Flashbacks unfurl like a silent film in her mind, the desperate struggle of a young guardian emerging amidst the chaos of a brutal attack, the overwhelming surge of sorrow as her family and pack fell one by one, and the cold, unyielding silence that followed the carnage. The smell of pine mingled with the metallic tang of blood, a scent forever etched into her memory. Even now, as she inhales the cool night air, the faint fragrance evokes those bittersweet days when every heartbeat carried the weight of survival. Her thoughts drift to the early moments of her guardianship. She vividly recalls the first time she cradled a tiny, shivering pup in her arms, vowing to protect that fragile life against all odds. The memory is as clear as the light that danced across the clearing at dawn. the soft glow of the morning sun filtering through the trees, illuminating the path she chose when the world seemed to have lost its color. In that moment, she became more than a survivor. She became a beacon of hope, a steadfast guardian whose inner strength would later guide not only herself, but also the many lives entrusted to her care. As Laura walks slowly along a forest trail, shrouded in the quiet majesty of night, her mind intermingles the past with the present. She remembers the sound of rustling leaves and the soft, mournful music of the wind through ancient pines. These sensory flashbacks are like gentle reminders that even as time moves relentlessly forward, the experiences that shaped her remain, deeply woven into her soul. The crackle of the frozen earth beneath her boots, and the distant, rhythmic drum of pack movements echo in the background, blending with her quiet reflections. In the stillness, Laura wonders, how do we reconcile the past that haunts us with the future we yearn to create? Can the pain of loss be transformed into the fuel for new beginnings? Each step she takes is weighted by the silent question of identity and purpose, a question that resonates with every werewolf who has ever known both. The night is alive with memories, and each one calls her to examine the mystical bond that exists among her kind. In the cool luminescence of the moon, she finds solace in the thought that her journey, however tumultuous, was destined by the ancient forces of nature themselves. The whispers of the moon goddess seem to echo in every rustle of the forest, a divine murmur that reassures her that even in her loneliness, she is part of a larger tapestry of existence, bound by love and loyalty. Reflecting on her life, Laura considers the dual nature of her existence, as both fierce protector and tender nurturer. The scars of her past serve as silent testaments to the battles she has fought, yet they also remind her of the beauty that rises from despair. It is in these quiet moments that she realizes the true power of kinship and the profound mystery of fate, where strength is not measured solely by brute force, but by the depth of heart and the capacity to heal. As she pauses at the edge of a tranquil, moonlit pond, her eyes glisten with unshed tears. She asks herself, is it possible for our broken hearts to mend and forge a destiny untainted by the cruelty of war? In the soft lap of gentle waves against the shore, Laura finds her answer, a whisper of reassurance that even in the shadow of tragedy, a new beginning can be born. The peaceful murmur of the water is like nature's lullaby, a promise that tomorrow holds the possibility of healing and rebirth. In that serene, reflective moment, Laura's thoughts turn inward as she contemplates the mystical aspects of werewolf existence. We are more than the sum of our battles, she muses silently. Our bonds are sacred threads woven by the hand of destiny, connecting us to the moon, to our lost kin, and to each other. With this realization, she resolves that the path ahead, though fraught with echoes of past sorrows, is also lit by the brilliance of loyalty and the possibility of true family. In this luminous convergence of memory and destiny, Laura's inner voice rings out softly. We are family. This declaration carries the power to heal, to inspire, and to remind every heart that even amidst darkness, the light of kinship and the rules of the pack. In the deep heart of the forest, the pack lives by a strict set of rules that shape every aspect of their existence. The social structure is built on a clear hierarchy, a living system where alphas, betas, and guardians all play their part. Each role is crucial in maintaining order, instilling tradition, and preserving the delicate balance that keeps the pack together. At the very top are the alphas, the leaders whose authority is acknowledged by every member. The alpha's word is law. They guide the pack through both moments of celebration and times of crisis. Every decision made by an alpha is taken with utmost care as it affects the safety and future of the entire community. Close behind, the betas serve as the alpha's trusted supporters. They are the enforcers and advisors whose quick actions help maintain order during chaotic times. The betas carry the heavy responsibility of ensuring that the rules are respected, and they often work as mediators between the alpha and the rest of the pack. Guardians hold a special and unique place among the pack. Unlike the members who must constantly prove their strength through shifting or physical combat, Guardians are entrusted with protecting the young and the vulnerable. They form strong bonds with those they protect, known as guardian bonds. This relationship is as sacred as the mate bond, yet it is different in its nature and purpose. While mate bonds unite two werewolves on the promise of eternal loyalty, guardian bonds are established instantly, as soon as a guardian senses the need to protect another. These bonds go beyond simple care. They establish a connection that is both deeply emotional and spiritual, a promise to provide security and nurture without conditions. Shifting, the process of transformation from human to wolf, is at the core of a werewolf's life. It symbolizes the raw, primal connection between the beast and the human soul. For many pack members, shifting is a source of strength and a way to connect with their inner animal spirit. However, it is also surrounded by strict traditions and an unspoken rule of secrecy. In public, a werewolf must control their transformation, keeping their true nature hidden from the outside world. This self-restraint is essential not only for their own safety, but also to prevent the disruption of the pack's carefully maintained order. When a member shifts in front of others, it is a signal of trust and vulnerability. Yet, revealing one's true wolf form can also threaten the pack if such secrets were to fall into the wrong hands. This double-edged nature of shifting makes it both a cherished gift and a dangerous curse. Alongside shifting, the bonds that form between pack members further define their relationships. The mate bond is the strongest of these ties, forged by destiny and sealed by nature. It binds two souls as equals, yet, paradoxically, it can also bring great pain if either side feels exploited or misunderstood. A mate is expected to contribute to the overall strength of the pack, while also providing emotional support. But the pressure of expectation can often lead to tension, as Similarly, the guardian bond is a vital aspect of pack life. It is established almost instantaneously. A guardian senses the need for protection, and a bond is formed. This bond requires an unyielding commitment to the well-being of the protected, and it transforms the guardian's role into that of a nurturing figure, much like a parent. While these bonds create an unbreakable circle of loyalty, they also expose those involved to the risk of great vulnerability. If a guardian's protective duty is forced to overshadow their own needs and desires, personal sacrifice becomes inevitable. Within the pack, there is ongoing tension between tradition and personal autonomy. For many, the rules that govern shifting and bonding are viewed as essential truths that have been passed down from generation to generation. They provide a framework that guarantees protection and a shared identity. Yet, at the same time, these traditions can seem oppressive, especially when individual needs clash with the collective will. The pressure to shift at certain times or to adhere strictly to the roles assigned by the pack can limit personal growth and self-expression. This internal battle between honoring the pack's ways and asserting one's personal identity creates a subtle but persistent strain on every member. It is a constant reminder that, in this world, strength is measured not only by physical prowess, but also by the courage to stay true to oneself. The stakes of these bonds are high. On one hand, they are a source of immense strength. The unity that comes from shared bonds allows the pack to face threats that no single member could ever endure alone. In the heat of battle, the combined energy of shifting, loyalty, and kinship can push them to achieve feats that seem almost superhuman. On the other hand, the same bonds make them vulnerable. The pain of witnessing a loved one in distress, or the fear of a bond being broken, can undermine even the strongest of hearts. Every member of the pack walks this thin line between invincibility and susceptibility, knowing that the very connections that empower them can also bring about their downfall if misused. In the end, the rules of the pack, shifting, secret-keeping, and the intertwining of mate and guardian bonds, serve as both a shield and a source of potential peril. These dynamics are the foundation upon which the pack society is built. They ensure that every howl in the night and every act of loyalty is not just a matter of instinct, but a deliberate choice to protect, support, and honor one another as us. We leave this glimpse into the intricate world of pack dynamics. Consider this. What price do we pay for the strength and security of belonging? And can the bonds that make us powerful also become the very chains that bind us? Reflect on these. Passion. Amidst turmoil, under the cloak of twilight, the night's charged energy crackled like static in the air. In the heart of the pack's territory, where ancient rules and brutal conflicts converge, passion and desire began to ignite, in defiance of the chaos surrounding them. In this space, where danger and longing entwined, even the fiercest of warriors found themselves caught in a tempest of sensuality and inner strife. The atmosphere shifted subtly as eyes that had burned, with determination now softened with a secret yearning, amid the clamor of pack rituals and the distant echoes of unresolved conflict. Whispered promises of intimacy danced in the dark. The interplay of desire and apprehension was palpable, a testament to the duality of their existence. For these were not mere physical urges. They were deep, raw emotions tearing at the very core of each being, stirring memories of past losses and kindling hopes for a future they dared not fully embrace. In the flickering light of a low-burning pyre, two figures came close, a moment of fragile connection in a world ruled by survival. The Alpha, whose commanding presence usually silenced dissent, now revealed a trembling vulnerability, as his gaze locked with that of his forbidden mate. His heart pounded in a rhythm that spoke of both longing and an unspoken fear. The simmering desire in his eyes was mirrored by hers, a delicate tempest of attraction and the weight of unspoken words. Their bodies, like ancient sculptures carved out of pain and perseverance, spoke a language beyond words. Every caress, every shared breath resonated with a dual purpose: to claim, to comfort, and to defy the constraints that held them captive. The air around them hummed with the conflicting notes of violence and tenderness. Fingers grazed bare skin with a poetic urgency, evoking a sensual symphony both beautiful and brutal. For one fleeting moment, time seemed suspended as inhibitions melted away like dew at sunrise. Their whispered confessions drifted through the night air, laden with the weight of desire and the consequences their world had etched into them. Yet, amid the passion, the shadow of their harsh reality lurked, a reality filled with territorial strife, age-old vendettas, and the ever-present threat of death in the guise of rogue invaders. As bodies intertwined in the secret language of lust, the intensity of their union was punctuated by the memories of scars that ran deeper than flesh. Each touch recalled past battles fought for survival. Every heated kiss was laced with the sorrow of loss, and every sigh bore the resonance of hopes unfulfilled. In the midst of the pack's turbulent existence, their sensual exchange was a fragile reprieve, a tender oasis where the relentlessness of war momentarily faded into the background. Yet, this delicate bubble of intimacy carried its own peril. The more they surrendered to desire, the further the old wounds reopened, threatening to destabilize the tenuous bonds they had fought so hard to maintain. Rhetorical questions began to whisper through the charged silence between them. Can passion truly bloom amidst such relentless strife? Is it possible for an alpha to embrace both ferocity and tenderness, to love without compromising the strength required to lead? And what price will these forbidden desires extract from a pack already teetering on the edge of despair? The queries hung in the air like thick mist, enshrouding their shared In the background, the distant howls of discontent and the clash of rival challengers underscored the inevitable clash between personal desire and the unyielding demands of pack tradition. The moment was both an eruption of raw, unfiltered longing and a warning shot amid the daily battles they waged, a delicate balancing act on the knife's edge between life, death, and the tender bonds that define their existence. This passionate interlude, though brief, revealed layers of vulnerability that few had ever witnessed. It was a silent confession that even in a world where strength was measured in claws and bloodshed, the heart could still harbor beauty, tenderness, and the capacity for profound connection. And as the flames of desire flickered and their bodies slowly separated, the emotional aftershocks left an indelible mark, a lingering trace of soft sighs and hushed promises that defied the violence and austerity of pack life. In that moment, as the alpha stepped back, his eyes burned with unspoken resolve, questioning whether the path of raw passion might ultimately prove too treacherous to navigate. Could this forbidden affair sow the seeds of chaos within the very core of their society? Or might it, against all odds, forge a bond so extraordinary that it redefines the meaning of family and loyalty in a world consumed by conflict? Before they could find an answer, the night fell silent once more, leaving the question echoing in the darkness. How will such passionate desires shape the destiny of a pack? Rifts in affection. In the quiet moments after the intensity of passion, a shadow of jealousy crept into the space between them, like an unwelcome guest at a once celebratory feast. The alpha, still caught in the aftermath of their impassioned union, found his mind swirling with conflicting emotions. His heart, which had offered tenderness moments before, now struggled under the weight of suspicion and betrayal. Even as warm memories of desire mingled with the cool night air, a bitter undercurrent of jealousy began to rise. Laura, the woman whose presence had ignited his soul, now stood as a beacon of conflicted affection. Her gaze, once soft and inviting, shifted with an almost imperceptible hardness, a guardedness that betrayed her inner turmoil. As the pack's nightly ritual continued around them, her eyes held flashes of uncertainty, hinting at the scars left by past wounds. In that very moment, the alpha sensed that something was shifting within her. It was as if a rift had formed, a silent battle between the comfort of their shared intimacy and a fear of being replaced or exploited. The dialogue between them became sparse and measured, stripped down to its bare essentials. Simple words floated into the night. A soft, "I need to know," and a trembling, "You left me cold." The intensity of his earlier declarations now gave way to questions that cut deep into both their hearts. The alpha's voice, usually commanding and resolute, wavered as he tried to mask a growing insecurity. With each passing beat, his internal struggle was written in the strained cadence of his speech, a rhythmic pulse of anger, longing, and hurt. Outside, the pack's murmurs and low, guttural growls provided a distant echo of their ongoing conflicts, amplifying the sense of isolation within the alpha. His inner thoughts raced in a chaotic tempo. One moment, a fierce determination to protect their bond surged through him. The next, an unsettling fear that his mate would drift away into another's embrace. The juxtaposition of his guarded nature and his overwhelming desire painted a vivid picture of the rift that now threatened to split the once unshakable foundation of their love. The alpha's inner monologue was a relentless tide of questions and accusations. He recalled every smile, every touch, a poignant reminder of how quickly love, when intertwined with pride, can twist into jealousy. His breath hitched as he thought, "Am I not enough?" Or, "Do you see my worth as your only mate?" These thoughts, heavy and unyielding, echoed in the cavern of his mind with every measured step he took away from her. Even the simple act of walking away seemed to reverberate with the tension of a heart divided between loyalty and envy. In moments of solitude, when the pack's raucous cheers had faded into a sorrowful hush, The Alpha's reflection in the darkened window told the story of a man at war with himself. The angular lines of his face, once full of raw determination, softened into a mask of uncertainty. His eyes, deep-set and searching, flashed with a silent plea, the desperate need for reassurance amid the storm of his own doubts. Around him, the world continued its relentless cycle of life and loss. The night air, cool and unyielding, offered no comfort as the memory of betrayal mingled with the fervor of desire. He remembered her tender smile from earlier, the way her eyes once shimmered with a promise of eternal devotion. Now, however, that same light seemed dimmed by the shadow of discontent, a quiet sorrow that spoke of past hurts resurfacing, of wounds that had never truly healed. Every whispered word, every silent glance between them was now laden with the seed of jealousy, a constant prickling awareness of what might be slipping away. Their voices, though simple and clear for the ease of conversation, carried an edge as sharp as broken glass. The once smooth cadence of intimacy now broke into staccato bursts, mirroring the jagged rhythm of his conflicted emotions. The Alpha's questions grew more pointed, his tone more strained. Do you still feel the fire within? Am I merely an echo of what you truly desire? And in these moments of raw exposure, his heart thundered against the confines of his own doubt, leaving him to wonder if the bonds they had fought so hard to form could withstand the corrosive effects of jealousy. Standing at the crossroads of passion and pain, the Alpha was left to confront the reality that the love he cherished might be tarnished by his own insecurities. The delicate balance between desire and duty was shifting, and the next move would determine whether their shared love would soar or fracture under the pressure of these tangled, uncertain emotions. What will become of these tangled emotions? And can a love the strength of the Guardian? In the quiet space between heartbeats and the shifting of souls, Guardian bonds emerged as the backbone of the pack. A sacred duty that went beyond mere protection, embodying the unconditional love of family and the selfless sacrifice of those who watched over their kin. For Laura, this bond was more than a title. It was a way of life, a solemn promise engraved upon her very heart that she would protect her loved ones at all costs. Laura's life, defined by the charge of caring for Mira, had been sculpted by the weight of responsibility and the gentle, unyielding strength born from years of sacrifice. From the moment she first heard Mira's plaintive cries echo through the wilderness, a desperate call that resonated deeply within her soul, Laura knew her destiny was irrevocably linked to this fragile, innocent life. It was in that moment that she embraced the mantle of guardianship, vowing silently that she would shield Mira from every sorrow and danger that the relentless world might throw at her. In the midst of chaos and the violent echoes of fading pack members, Laura found solace in the quiet moments of nurture. As the pack's turmoil raged outside, she would often retreat to a small corner of her humble dwelling, where the soft light of dawn kissed the worn wooden walls and the scent of herbal remedies filled the air. Here, she reflected on the deep bond she shared with her protected, a connection that transcended blood and breed. It was the kind of love that did not waver even in the face of loss, a love that transformed pain into purpose, despair into a fierce determination to persevere. Every day, as Mira slept peacefully under Laura's watchful eye, the Guardian's thoughts would drift back to that pivotal moment of adoption, when, though shrouded in heartache, she chose to carry the burden of a child's hope. Those memories, often tender and bittersweet, reminded her that her purpose was to be the strong arm, the safe haven, and the unbreakable shield against the cruel world of rogues and rival packs. Even when her own heart ached from the scars of betrayals and the bitterness of rejected bonds, Laura managed. It was not an easy road. There were nights when the isolation of her duty weighed heavily on her soul, when the silent echoes of her own unspoken losses mingled with the cries of the vulnerable. And yet, With each passing trial, Laura's resolve hardened like tempered steel. Every scratch, every tear was a testament to the sacrifices that defined her identity as Mira's guardian. She found that her compassion was not a mark of weakness, but a source of formidable inner strength. A light that not only brightened her own path, but also illuminated a road for those who followed her lead. In the intricate social fabric of the Ni pack, family allegiances played a crucial role. Guardian bonds, though formed in the absence of blood ties, were revered as deeply as any familial connection. Laura's commitment to Mira had brought her a sense of belonging, and a purpose that rivaled even the bonds of mate, forging an alliance built on trust and shared destiny. She listened to the voices of the elders, whose wisdom echoed with the guidance of past generations, and she embraced their teachings with both humility and vigor. In her eyes, the protection she offered was not just a duty, it was a sacred covenant that would endure, even if the winds of change swept through the territories. During quiet evenings, when the pack gathered around the fire and the stars painted the sky with stories of old, Laura would softly recount the essence of guardian bonds to the younger ones. With simple, heartfelt language, she explained that this bond was more than duty. It was a commitment to care for each other in the darkest of times, to keep each other safe when the world beyond the tree line seemed ruthless and unkind. Every sacrifice she had ever made, every moment of sleepless vigilance over Mira, was a tribute to that profound pledge. Now, as the cool night settled over the pack, Laura's inner reflections grew even more resolute. She understood that amidst the unending challenges of survival, there was an undying promise in the bonds that held them together. The pain of loss, the sting of betrayal, and the ache of loneliness were heavy burdens. Yet, in those burdens lay the seeds of hope and the clarity of purpose. Laura knew without a doubt that she would defend her protective charge, her family of choice, with everything she had, even if it meant standing alone against the tide of an indifferent world. In that moment, as she gazed out at the flickering lights of the camp and the soft, steady breaths of those she cherished, Laura made a silent vow. A vow that she would, through every trial and tribulation, remain a guardian in the truest sense, steadfast, compassionate, and unyielding. For in the bonds of family, no matter how unconventional, lay the strength to overcome any darkness. And with that resolve echoing in her heart, Stung by Abandonment. In that fateful moment, when the world seemed to shatter into jagged fragments of regret and solitude, I felt the sharp sting of abandonment like 1,000 needles pressing into my heart. My voice, usually so resolute and commanding, now faltered under the weight of my own failure. The silence that followed my rejection of her, her gentle, pleading eyes, her desperate whispered pleas, echoed in my mind, a haunting refrain of what once was and what might have been. I could still hear the ghostly cadence of my own words, each syllable a reminder of my misstep, a misstep that had driven a wedge between our intertwined destinies. Time, for a brief eternity, slowed to a crawl. The surrounding noises, the distant howls of the pack, the rustle of leaves in the cold wind, became an indistinct murmur, as if the universe itself was pausing to witness the deep pain etched into my soul. I saw, with painful clarity, the moment my actions broke the sacred bond we had once shared, as if I had severed the delicate thread that connected our hearts. That thread, once vibrant with the promise of unity and purpose, now trembled, frayed by the force of rejection. I remember the shock that coursed through me, my body frozen, my heartbeat a rapid staccato against the silence. In that suspended moment, I could almost taste the acrid bitterness of my own disillusionment. My inner monologue turned to a smooth, rhythmic lament, each thought echoing in measured, weighted beats. I did not mean to hurt you. I did not wish for you to feel this isolation. What have I done? Every pause felt like an eternity. a moment of reflection so intense that the very air around me seemed to thicken, burdened by sorrow. The conflict within my chest tore at me, a relentless battle between the duty that I so desperately clung to and the desire that had, in an instant, betrayed me with its unforeseen cruelty. For so long, I had been the protector, the guardian, sworn to shield you from the world's harshest blows. Yet, in my misguided attempt to preserve my honor, I pushed you away, and in doing so, I shattered the very foundation upon which our bond was built. As I paced slowly in the cold, dim light of my solitude, my mind replayed that critical moment over and over, a loop of self-reproach and longing. My thoughts flowed like a weary river, smooth yet resolute, carrying with them both the memories of our closeness and the unbearable anguish of your rejection. I felt an ache that penetrated deep, like the cold sting of winter frost, numbing the edges of my soul. Every reflection was accompanied by a quiet, sorrowful murmur, as if my heart whispered secrets I was too ashamed to share aloud. I was not strong enough. I was not gentle enough. I let my pride overshadow my love. In the depths of that self-inflicted isolation, I questioned every decision. Was my insistence on maintaining control merely a mask for my deeper, hidden fears? Fears that perhaps my love was not enough to bridge the gap between duty and desire. The rhythm of regret played softly in my mind, each beat drawing me further into contemplation, into the realization that I recalled the times when your eyes shone with hope, when you believed that I would always be there for you, that my arms were your refuge, and that our bond was unbreakable. Those memories, like golden threads in a tapestry, now contrasted bitterly with the cold, harsh reality of my actions. The image of you, standing there, hurt and withdrawn, burned in my mind, a stark reminder of my failings. I must make this right, I repeated silently, each word a solemn vow. I had to atone for the moment of abandonment. I had to reclaim the connection that was slipping like shadows into the night. In the quiet aftermath, with each slow breath I took, the truth became more evident. I had to learn from this agonizing lapse, to transform this rejection into a turning point, a catalyst for growth and reconciliation. The pain was acute, its lessons written in the language of sorrow and regret. And so, with a heavy heart and trembling resolve, I vowed to correct my course. I would mend the broken thread, nurture the fragile hope that still lingered in the quiet corners of my soul, and let you know with every fiber of my being that I would never allow this to happen again. It is in these low, mournful hours that I stand at the crossroads of guilt and redemption. The question that haunts me, what can I do to restore what has been lost, rings out with every heartbeat. I promise you now, under the silent witness of the midnight sky, that I will dedicate myself to healing these wounds. I will reach out, I will listen, and above all, I will cherish the bond between us. I may have been stung by abandonment, but I shall not let it be my end. Instead, it will become the seed from which new strength blossoms, an enduring testament to the power of love when it is nurtured with humility, understanding, and unwavering commitment. A vow to reclaim. Love, in the lonely hours of the night, when the chill of regret cut deeper than the winter's frost, I found myself at a crossroads. Every memory of that fateful moment, the look in your eyes, the silent plea in your voice, haunted me like ghostly whispers in the darkness. I was consumed with self-doubt and remorse, my heart heavy with the knowledge that I had let my pride and stubbornness drive you away. I sat alone beneath the dim glow of the moon, questioning every decision that had brought me to this painful threshold. The road to redemption loomed before me, lit by the faint hope that I might one day reclaim your love and restore the bond we once cherished. I began by retracing my steps in the quiet solitude of the forest. With each careful footfall, I recalled the moments when you trusted me implicitly, the gentle warmth of your embrace, the soft murmur of our shared promises. Those memories, though distant, were as vivid as the scars etched upon my soul. I realized that the journey I had to embark upon wasn't merely about winning you back. It was about rebuilding the strength of our connection, piece by fragile piece. I vowed to face my inner demons, to acknowledge my faults, and to transform the bitter lessons of rejection into a renewed commitment for the future. Every night, in the silence that followed the pack's howls and the rustle of the pine trees, I engaged in an internal dialogue. My thoughts moved slowly, each sentence laden with a mixture of regret, determination, and the quiet hope of a better tomorrow. I thought, I must learn to set aside my wounded pride. I must remember that love is not about control or dominance. It is about nurturing trust and protection. In the stillness, my heart pulsed with a desperate promise to never let fear rule over my tenderness again. I prayed silently to the moon goddess, vowing to do everything within my power to mend the fractures in our bond and to protect the family that depended on our union. The elders of our pack, wise souls who had weathered many harsh winters, became my guiding light during this dark period. One evening, as I sat by a dying campfire, an elder with kind, knowing eyes approached me. His voice, calm and soothing, echoed softly in the cool air. True strength, dear one, is not in the absence of regret, but in the courage to rise from it. Your heart is heavy, yet it carries a power that can heal if only you dare to embrace it. His words, simple yet profound, became a mantra that helped steady the tremors of my shattered self. With each day that passed, I took small steps toward self-forgiveness, reassessing my past missteps and planning how I could make amends. I enlisted the support of close pack members, friends who once saw the fire of my determination and the love within my soul. Their gentle counsel reminded me that redemption was not instantaneous. It was a process of honest introspection and resilient action. One companion told me, "Your loyalty has always been unwavering. Let that loyalty guide you back to her heart. Show her the depth of your commitment through actions, not just words." These affirmations, though modest, fortified my resolve. I began working tirelessly, training harder, meditating longer, and opening my Day by day, I set out to prove to myself and to you that I was changing, that I could rise above the mistakes of the past. I visited the familiar places where our laughter once echoed and where dreams were once shared. I recalled each gentle memory, each quiet moment of vulnerability between us, and I promised myself that I would create new memories. Memories where trust, protection, and love prevailed over the sting of abandonment. I started planning a series of gestures and actions that might serve as tokens of my sincere remorse and unwavering dedication. Whether it was an offering of rare herbs known for their healing properties or simple acts of kindness shared with the pack, each step was meticulously crafted to rebuild the emotional bridge that had collapsed. I imagined a future where we could once again walk side by side through the dense forest under the watchful eye of the moon goddess. A future where the legacy of our lost allies and the trials we endured would transform into a testament of our strength as one. Yet, amidst all this planning and inner transformation, the question lingered like a soft, unyielding echo in the depths of my mind. How long would it take for you to see the change? Would you, too, dare to let go of your own hurt and allow the promise of redemption to guide us back together? With every rising sun, my determination grew, yet so did my trepidation. I was well aware that the road ahead was treacherous, lined with unforeseen tests of loyalty, and the ever-present danger of those who would seek to tear us apart. But I made my vow clear in that silent moment beneath the heavens. I would not rest until I had reclaimed your trust and revived the bond that was once the bedrock of our pack. Even as I pushed forward, I whispered a quiet promise to myself and to the memory of all we had lost. I will prove my worth, and I will win back your love. And thus, with renewed heart and resolve hardened like the ancient stones underfoot, I prepared myself to face whatever trials would come, knowing that the journey toward redemption. The Tournament of Fate. The air was electric with a tangible tension as the pack prepared for the annual ranking tournament, a time when the very fate of our pack, our bonds, and our leadership was put to the test. Tonight, as the sun bowed out before the rise of a cold, silvery moon, every wolf, every heartbeat, reverberated with the promise of imminent battle. In the clearing at the edge of our territory, makeshift arenas had been erected with stones and logs arranged into circles where challenges would soon unfold. The cool night breeze carried with it the murmurs of anticipation and anxiety. Each passing gust reminded us that we were on the verge of a confrontation that would define our very future. The scent of pine mixed with the acrid tang of burning wood, setting the perfect stage, a natural amphitheater for a ritual of blood, honor, and destiny. Pack members moved with purpose under the pale moonlight. The alphas, betas, and guardians alike donned their wolf forms, muscles rippling beneath dense pelts, every sinew and fiber ready to be called upon. There was an undeniable excitement in the air, a unified energy that pulsed like the beat of a mighty drum. Yet underneath this shared thrill lay a deep-seated anxiety. For in our world, the tournament was not merely a contest of strength, but an examination of loyalty, integrity, and the very essence of who we were meant to be. As the pack gathered, Alpha Chi, resplendent in his shifting glory, took a commanding position at the center of the circle. His eyes, dark and intense like polished onyx, scanned the crowd. The responsibility of leadership weighed heavily on him, yet he bore it with a noble grace. Alongside him, I watched the leaders of neighboring packs come forth, each one a testament to the fierce rivalry and fragile alliances that defined our existence. Every challenge carried the hidden threat of betrayal. Every victory held the promise of a new era. The stakes were monumental. Not only the coveted titles of Alpha and Luna, but also the integrity of the mate and guardian bonds that held our pack together. The rhythmic beating of our hearts seemed to merge into one thundering pulse that resonated across the clearing. The challenge was about to begin. I could almost taste the metallic tang of adrenaline in the air. Each participant carried their own silent burdens, memories of past failures, the weight of responsibilities, and an unyielding desire to prove their worth. In this charged atmosphere, even the slightest misstep could lead to ruin. What would determine the outcome of these trials? Would it be raw physical power? As the first challengers stepped forward, their eyes flashed with a mix of ambition and fear. Every movement was deliberate, each exhale filled with both aggression and hope. The sounds of paws thudding against the soil and the low growls of contenders echoed like an ancient chant, summoning the spirits of our ancestors who once ruled these lands. The clearing transformed into a battlefield, a place where traditions were upheld and legacies were forged in the crucible of combat. The duel was more than a contest. It was an expression of our primal nature, a desperate, vivid display of what it meant to fight for honor, love, and survival. Amid the chaos of clashing furs and snarled commands, the bond between mates and guardians flickered like a fragile flame. There were moments when the intensity of battle revealed the deep connections that bound us to one another, the unspoken promises and shared dreams that made our struggles meaningful. Yet, these bonds also made the tournament all the more painful. The fierce competition, with its brutal blows and relentless onslaught, threatened to shatter not only our bodies, but also the fragile threads of trust and connection that we had fought so hard to preserve. I could feel my own pulse quicken with both dread and determination. The arena became a mirror reflecting our innermost conflicts, our loyalty to our pack, our personal ambitions, and the irrepressible desire to protect those we loved. As the Jarlsson contest continued, the air filled with the sounds of victory and the pained groans of defeat. Roars of triumph mingled with the hiss of desperate warnings, and the rhythmic cadence of combat grew ever more intense. The crowd was silent in awe and trepidation, every eye fixed on the ongoing challenges. In that moment, one could almost forget the world beyond the clearing, the vast wild expanse of our territory, the ever-lurking danger of the rogues, and the relentless passage of time. With each clash, the question loomed larger and more insistent. How would this tournament shape our future? Would it redefine the balance of power within our pack, or even alter the sacred bonds that held us together? As the final duel drew near, a deep, resonant silence swept over the arena, a pregnant pause before the storm. It was as though the very essence of our existence was held in that breathless moment, waiting to be carried away by the inevitable clash of fates. The stakes were clear. Our identities, our loyalties, and our destiny rested on the outcome of this bitter contest. And in that charged moment, as the moonlight danced on the blood-stained earth, we all wondered, what would the tournament decide? Would it herald a new dawn of unity and strength, or plunge us further into the chaos of fractured allegiances? The answers, hidden in the training and conflict. In the weeks before the tournament, the pack's base transformed into a bustling field of training and sparring, a veritable arena of determination and defiance. Under the steady beat of nature, every muscle and sinew in our bodies was put to the test. The crisp morning air carried a heady mix of anticipation and the tang of sweat, as members of all ranks gathered to refine their skills, test their strengths, and settle old scores with friendly rivalry and fierce determination. At first light, the clearing outside our pack house became a de facto gym. Makeshift training areas were set up with piled logs, bent branches, and carefully marked boundaries on the ground, inviting every wolf and human alike to push past their limits. In one corner, a group of younger warriors were engaged in rapid-fire drills, dodging, lunging, and pivoting as if their lives depended on every swift movement. Their playful shouts and laughter mixed with grunts of exertion, offering a snapshot of youthful exuberance and raw potential. I often took refuge on the sidelines, watching with a knowing smile as the minor members, those who hadn't yet earned a prominent place in our leadership, tested themselves against one another. Among them was a burly beta named Mason, who always tried to outdo his peers with his relentless energy. Mason's constant banter, light-hearted jabs, and the rough teasing exchanged with his friend, Todd, infused the training sessions with an almost contagious spirit of camaraderie, even as their rivalry grew. Their friendly rivalry reminded me of times long past, where ambition fueled both growth and the bonds between pack members. Veterans of the pack, including seasoned warriors with scars mapping their past battles, also joined the sessions. Their movements, though more measured, were replete with precision and skill. I watched, impressed, as they broke into sparring matches that seemed choreographed by years of discipline. Every simulated strike and expertly dodged counter reflected not just physical prowess, but the silent understanding that every blow was a lesson for both the attacker and the defender. In the midst of training, playful challenges would erupt into full-blown contests. A minor dispute over a maneuver or a miscalculated lunge could suddenly escalate, sinews straining, voices raised in defiant retorts, and eyes locked in a moment of testy competition. However, these bouts, though intense, were never without an undercurrent of mutual respect. Each clash was a way to prove oneself before the eyes of the pack, while also learning the limits of one's abilities. It was a tumultuous dance of aggression and strategy, an expression of our shared desire to be the best version of ourselves. I sometimes found myself sparring with a formidable opponent from another branch of the pack. His name was Derek, known for his unmatched stamina and unpredictable fighting style. Our sessions were filled with both laughter and grit as we exchanged rapid-fire blows, testing boundaries and teasing each other with playful remarks. "You're too slow today, Laura," he would say with a mischievous twinkle in his eye, only to be met with a retort that was as light-hearted as it was challenging. Between bouts, the energy among us was palpable. Even when the strikes and parries subsided into moments of recuperative silence, the air buzzed with unspoken tension. Amid the rigorous physical training, we also refined the unspoken rules that governed our pack, the delicate balance between the instinct to dominate and the need for unity. Through mutual encouragement, rivalries were tempered into lasting friendships. Each minor victory or defeat became an essential thread in the fabric of our shared destiny. Not all attention was focused on the raw physical contests. Some members discreetly observed the dynamics among us, the subtle shifts of posture that hinted at unspoken alliances or burgeoning conflicts. Our elders, with their calm and measured presence, moved quietly among us, offering occasional words of wisdom. They reminded us that no matter how fervent our battles became, the strength of the pack would always be measured by our loyalty to one another. One elder, a soft-spoken yet formidable figure named Rena, would often draw us aside for brief chats in moments of respite. "Remember," she would intone gently, "our strength lies not only in our power but in the bonds we forge with our kin." As the days drew nearer to the tournament, the atmosphere grew even more charged, a mix of nerves, excitement, and the lingering sense of sweat and earth. Each training session served as both a rehearsal for the impending challenge and a crucible, testing and reinforcing the delicate balance between personal ambition and collective duty. Every punch, every kick, every challenging word exchanged in the arena was imbued with the stakes of tomorrow's contest. At the close of one particularly grueling session, with the sun dipping low behind rugged pine silhouettes, we all paused to catch our breath. In that moment, the clearing echoed with our heavy breathing, and the rustle of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze. The tension of the day's exertion mingled with a renewed sense of purpose. We knew that soon, every lesson learned on the training ground would be put to the ultimate test in the tournament, a fight where pride, leadership, and the fate of our sacred bonds hung in the balance. So, I ask you, dear listener, as we stand on the precipice of battle, do you ever wonder what true strength really means? Will the tournament forge new bonds or fracture old ones? The journey ahead promises both intense struggles and moments of profound revelation. Into the arena, the day had finally arrived. The clearing that once echoed with quiet mourning and desperate search was now transformed into a pulsing arena of raw energy. A vast, natural amphitheater set against the rugged backdrop of towering pines and a fading summer sky. As dawn broke, a vibrant mix of eager howls and murmurs filled the air, as hundreds of pack members gathered to bear witness to the tournament that would decide their fate for the coming season. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Every breath of wind seemed to carry the promise of fierce battles, and every rustle of leaves was like the stirring of ancient spirits called to witness the tradition. At the edge of the clearing, large clusters of warriors stood shoulder to shoulder, their eyes shining with determination. The ground was scarred by the marks of countless past encounters, a testament to those who had fought before and to the bitter lessons of power and sacrifice. The beating of hearts mixed with the pounding of hooves and the snapping of twigs underfoot as the participants, dressed in the regalia of their pack, took their positions. There was an almost tangible electricity, a current of adrenaline that tickled the skin and quickened the pulse of every onlooker. I could hear the distant echo of my own thoughts as they collided with the sounds of nature. My mind raced, weighing the stakes of the tournament, the whispers of ancient lore, and the pressure of leadership that I had carried for so long. The challenge ahead was not only to prove my own worth as the alpha, but also to protect the bonds that held our family together. I could almost taste the tang of fear and ambition in the air as I looked towards the center of the clearing. Every inhalation was laced with the acrid scent of sweat and the earthy aroma of the forest floor, a perfume uniquely born of our existence as kin of the wild. From across the arena, my mate Laura stood with a measured calm, her eyes reflecting both determination and the quiet burden of unspoken pain. I could feel her internal struggle like a shared heartbeat, a conflict between past rejections and the hope that had flickered once more in our hearts. Together, we stood as pillars of our pack. I, with the weighted responsibilities of leadership, and she, with the tenderness of nurture and the scars of a past that refused to be forgotten. In these moments, as the morning sun painted long shadows across the ground, I found solace in the unspoken promises between us, a silent vow that our fates were intertwined beyond the realm of mere rivalry. A deep, resonant drumbeat from within. The forest signaled the commencement of the tournament. It was as if the heartbeat of the earth itself was urging us forward. The murmurs grew into a rising swell of anticipation as the first challengers stepped forward. Each measured step they took was accompanied by the crack of twigs and the quiet murmur of cheers from their comrades. I closed my eyes for a fleeting second, summoning the strength from internally. I questioned the sheer weight of our destinies. What did it mean to fight for leadership? How could we balance the inherent savagery of our nature with the tender compassion that bound us to one another? My thoughts were punctuated by the dramatic halt of silence as the first bout erupted, a collision of power and fury that set the entire arena ablaze with motion. Every sharp cry, every burst of snarls, resonated against the ancient barks of the forest, amplifying the spectacle into something mythic. In that breathtaking moment, I could almost hear the whispers of the moon goddess herself, urging us to seize glory and remember the sacrifices of those who came before. A subtle pause swept over the clearing, a dramatic silence that allowed every emotion to simmer for a heartbeat before the chaos resumed. As I stood there, my internal monologue turned to resolve. I reminded myself of the countless nights spent pacing the dark corridors of our existence, the endless battles both external and within. Now, as I surveyed the sea of my kin, the sights, the sounds, and even the shared glances passed between allies, I knew that the outcomes of this tournament would shape our future. Would it weld our bonds tighter, or would it reveal the fractures beneath our unity? Amid the thunderous roars and clashing figures, I caught one final thought, a call to action whispered in my own mind. Fellow seekers of strength and redemption, I ask you, can you imagine the electrifying moment when raw ambition meets indomitable loyalty? Who will rise to become the true embodiment of our legacy? Which bonds will be reforged in the heat of battle, and which will be torn apart by the unyielding pressure of destiny? As the tournament roared on, the dramatic cadence of every strike, every parry, and every cry of triumph wove together a symphony of conquest. Every heartbeat thumped with anticipation as our pack's future hung in the balance. And so, with our spirits ignited and our fates intertwined, we stepped into the arena, into the epicenter of conflict and promise. For here, in the midst of the clamor, we would discover not only the measure of our strength, but the true essence of who we are as a pack. Watch closely, for the unfolding drama. Fury unleashed. The clearing erupted into chaos as the tournament reached its most ferocious moment. Savage clashes of fangs and claws filled the air, while each participant fought with an intensity that spoke to their very souls. In the midst of this tumult, every strike was not only a physical blow, but a resounding shock to the heart, a testament to the raw fury that pulsed through our veins as we fought for love, honor, and survival. Amid the roaring crowd, I advanced, muscles taut, every fiber of my being alert to the danger around me, the sound of snapping twigs, the resounding thuds of bodies colliding, and the guttural roars of my adversaries merged into an almost operatic chaos. As I lunged at my opponent, a massive rival with eyes like burning coals, the rush of adrenaline merged with an undercurrent of dread. I dodged a savage swipe and countered with a rapid flurry of blows that echoed off the ancient trees surrounding the arena. Yet, as the physical battle raged, my inner voice whispered in fear. What if one of these blows takes away the one thing I hold most dear? Between each furious exchange, there were moments of heavy stillness, pauses in which the true cost of this conflict reverberated in my mind. I could feel the tremor of every hit, the sting of every impact against my skin. With each collision, memories of past losses and the heavy burden of leadership surged forward, a reminder that in these moments, every emotion was raw, every strike was a risk. The brutal reality of this tournament was not just a test of strength, but a reckoning with the deep loneliness that accompanied the weight of responsibility. On the periphery, my mate's eyes shone with equal fire and anguish. Even amid the blood, sweat, and chaos, I could sense the fear coursing through her, a silent dread of losing the bond we had fought so hard to secure. Every time a fierce blow landed, an inner battle flared inside me. The terror of loss clashed with the burning determination to protect what was mine. The crushing impact of a heavy fist against my shoulder jolted me from the momentary haze of battle, and I found myself questioning if these clashes were erasing us, tearing apart the threads of connection that defined our pack. The clash became more than the physical exchange. It evolved into a symphony of conflict, where every roar, every snarl, and every desperate cry told the story of our inner turmoil. I could see the fear in my opponent's eyes, a mirror of my own, reminding me that beneath our savage exteriors, we were all driven by an emotion too potent to suppress. Every parry was punctuated by a brief, lingering silence as if the world held its breath. These pauses allowed a grim reflection on the sacrifices made and the lives at stake, and each moment of stillness was as biting as the violent blows themselves. The crowd's excitement blended with an almost palpable tension, an electric anticipation, as if the very air around us vibrated with the power of unresolved destiny. In this whirlwind of fury, one decisive moment loomed near, casting a shadow over the outcome of the tournament. As I engaged in a brutal exchange with a relentless challenger who refused to yield, the ground beneath us quivered with each collision. My heartbeat hammered like a war drum, its relentless beat echoing in my ears. Amid the melee, I felt the raw surge of conflicting passions, rage, desperation, and a deep-seated fear of losing what I cherished most. My inner thoughts turned to the safety of my loved ones and the future of our pack. The very thought of failure twisted in my stomach like a cursed vine, and I fought to keep that terror at bay. With every vicious thrust and every explosive counterattack, an internal prayer whispered, "Do not let this be our undoing." It was a battle fought not merely with physical might, but with every ounce of emotion I could muster. Then, as the duel crescendoed, an intense final moment unfolded, a clash so fierce it seemed to suspend time. My challenger and I locked eyes as our forces met in a decisive, explosive conflict. In that split second, everything was magnified. The weight of our lineage, the fear of what might be lost, and the burning hope for redemption. I delivered a crippling blow, and the brutal sound of flesh and bone colliding with the ground cut through the chaos. But as my foe staggered back, the outcome remained uncertain. The crowd's roar dimmed into an anxious hush, leaving me, and every onlooker, wondering if this final moment would tip the balance, or if destiny would demand further sacrifice. In this maelstrom of combat and inner torment, questions lingered, heavy and profound. Will these fierce battles forge stronger bonds for our pack, or will the scars of conflict drive us further apart? Can the raw, unyielding passion that fuels our very existence overcome the haunting fear of loss? And above all, what price will we pay for fighting in the arena of fate? As the arena trembled under the weight of anticipation, I knew only one thing. Our future hung delicately in the balance, forged by every volatile emotion. Crisis of the heart. In the lingering haze of battle, as the echoes of savage clashes began to recede, a disquieting silence fell over the blood-stained arena. The once relentless roar of combat now gave way to a trembling murmur, an eerie pause that held the weight of unspoken sorrows. Amid shattered limbs and fallen foes, I could sense a shift not only in the battlefield but deep within me. It was in this suspended moment that the harsh reality of loss, burning desire, and bitter betrayal converged, creating a vortex of emotion that threatened to swallow every resolute thought. The air was heavy with the copper tang of blood and the acrid stench of scorched earth. Each breath felt like a reminder of what had been sacrificed on this blood-soaked stage. I stood there, heart pounding against my ribcage, the gruesome scene around me a cruel backdrop to the turmoil within. The frenzy of combat had not quenched, the raw ache of grief. And as I surveyed the fallen, images of old allies, friends, family, flickered in my memory. I felt the sting of every loss piercing my soul with the precision of a viper's fangs, each memory a shard of glass that cut deeper as the battle ended. Then, amid the somber silence, a single sound emerged, a soft, broken cry, echoing like a solitary note in a minor key. It was as if the battlefield itself was weeping, a lament for the lives irretrievably lost, and for the sanctity of bonds once deemed unbreakable. That solitary cry, filled with despair and lingering hope, stirred something deep inside of me. In that moment, rage and longing warred within my chest, their fury blending with the devastation around me to create an overwhelming crisis of the heart. I found myself clashing, not with an enemy, but with my inner demons. The memory of betrayal, the very sting of rejection that I had endured, intertwined with the desperate desire to reclaim what I had lost. Each beat of my heart resounded with the question, how could someone so vital be so carelessly abandoned? As these thoughts crashed over me like a relentless tide, I felt the bitter sting of disillusionment. The raw intensity of the previous battle had left scars, and now those physical wounds were mirrored by emotional fissures that threatened to split my world apart. The battlefield, once a chaotic symphony of violence, gradually transformed into a stage for introspection. I slowly sank to my knees amidst the debris, feeling the cool, hard earth beneath me, a stark contrast to the scorching pain of betrayal and longing that burned within. My mind churned with memories of moments when love and loyalty had been my guiding light, when every challenge had been met with unyielding determination. Now, however, the battlefield revealed not only the fate of fallen warriors, but also the uncertainty of my own heart. I recalled the promises of eternal strength and unity spoken in hushed tones by the elders, and a ghost of regret whispered through my thoughts. The price of pride, the toll of rejecting what was meant to be cherished. The voices of past mistakes reverberated in the silence, each one urging a different path, urging me to either embrace the love that had once defined my world or retreat further into bitterness. Amid the swirling emotions, the faces of my lost allies and the echo of their hopeful howls merged with the present, challenging me to choose. Should I allow my wounded heart to harden against the sorrow, or should I risk the vulnerability of opening myself to the possibility of redemption and healing? As I sat there, contemplating the steep cost of loyalty and the sacrifices demanded by our sacred bonds, I could almost feel the warmth of a long-lost embrace on my skin, a reminder of love that once promised safety and belonging. It was in that precarious juncture between combat and calm that I realized the ultimate test was not the physical trials of battle, but the emotional crucible that forged our destinies. With every heartbeat, the pulse of my desire intertwined with the pain of rejection, each throb echoing a silent vow, a promise that I would reclaim not only our honor, but also the tender, fragile love that had been so brutally cast aside. Now, with the chaos of the arena receding into memories of violence and loss, I found myself at a crossroads. The scars on my body served as a vivid reminder of the fury unleashed today, and the silent screams of my soul begged a reconciliation of duty and desire. The stakes had never been higher. What must be sacrificed for love? What price must be paid to restore loyalty in a world where betrayal cuts deep and every battle leaves behind an indelible mark on the heart? In that moment of raw vulnerability, the question hung in the air, heavy and inexorable. Our future, as a pack and as individuals bound by ancient tradition and unyielding emotion, depended on the decisions we would now make. Could I find the strength within myself to heal the wounds of rejection, to embrace the love that still lingered like a beacon in the darkness? And, ultimately, how many sacrifices would be necessary to mend the fragile bonds that held us together? A bond that might one day The reversal. In the quiet aftermath of battle and bitter solitude, the moment of redemption quietly unfolded. It was as if time had slowed to a tender, almost whispered cadence, each heartbeat a soft, hopeful drum echoing in the silence. Standing amidst the fading remnants of conflict, the Alpha felt the heavy burden of loss and regret that had long weighed upon his soul. His mind, once clouded with anger and despair at his earlier rejection, now began to clear, and with it, a fragile but undeniable hope began to stir. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, he reached out as if guided by the gentle murmur of the wind. The cool caress of the evening air carried with it a delicate blend of pine and vanilla, a scent that, against all odds, reminded him of warmth, comfort, and a love he never thought he would regain. In that tender moment, his hand brushed against her skin. The softness that greeted his touch, the quiet tremor of her pulse beneath her skin, and the faint scent of lavender and citrus mingling in the air, all conspired to break down the remnants of his hardened resolve. He paused, his eyes meeting hers, and in that silent exchange, the full weight of years of separation and pain seemed to melt away. The wounds of his heart, still raw from the rejection, were slowly healing as her gaze, gentle and resolute, reached deep inside him. There was no forceful clamor in that look. Instead, there was an unspoken promise, a quiet vow to try again, to heal together. In that hushed pause, every painful memory was met with the soft reassurance of her presence. The Alpha felt vulnerable in a way he had never allowed himself to be before, yet it was in that vulnerability that he discovered the truest strength. Around them, the world seemed to hold its breath. Even the soft rustle of the trees and the distant murmur of the pack had taken on a dulcet quality, as if nature itself was listening intently to this turning point. The gentle sound of a lone breeze whispered over the clearing, carrying with it the echoes of forgiveness and the promise of new beginnings. Time appeared to slow further, and for a few long, transcendent minutes, nothing existed except the two of them standing together beneath the vast, starlit sky. I cannot live in the shadow of regret any longer, he murmured, his voice a soft blend of relief and raw vulnerability. Each word was spoken slowly, measured yet deeply sincere. My heart, once blinded by fear and pride, now sees the truth. That what I rejected was not weakness at all, but the very strength that binds us. I want to be yours, completely and utterly, without reservation. Her eyes shimmered with a complex mixture of longing and cautious hope as she listened, every sense alive to the softness in his tone and the sincerity in his plea. The faint sound of distant wolves howling in gentle response added a mystical resonance to the scene, as if nature itself was blessing their reunion. At that moment, every detail, the brush of his fingertips along her arm, the subtle warmth that spread from her skin, the rhythmic pulse of The Alpha took a careful step closer, and in that breathless space between them, he felt her lean in, as if drawn by the silent call of their intertwined fates. "I see now that rejecting you was my gravest mistake," he whispered, his voice barely, louder than the rustling of leaves. "I have been lost in the darkness of my own regret, and the only light that could guide me back was your presence, your love. Please let me make it right. Let us begin anew, together, as we were destined to be." Her eyes, soft yet determined, locked with his, and in that mutual gaze, an unspoken acknowledgement of shared past pain, present longing, and a hopeful future was born. The delicate scent of night-blooming jasmine and fresh dew seemed to envelop them, intensifying the intimacy of the moment. The soft hum of the world around them provided a gentle symphony for their emotional turnaround, a promise that even in the wake of devastation, love could rise, unyielding and pure. With a slow, deliberate movement, filled with both caution and desire, they embraced. The union was not one of hurried passion, but of deliberate healing closeness, a merging of souls that whispered of forgiveness and reclaimed destiny. The Alpha pressed his forehead against hers, and in that shared moment, all the pain, fear, and bitterness seemed to ebb away, replaced by a profound sense of renewal. "I vow," he declared, his voice growing in strength as he spoke, "to cherish you and our bond with every beat of my heart. I will protect you, honor you, and love you until the end of my days. Our past no longer defines us. It has only made us stronger. From this day forth, know that I am yours, and we are a family bound by the sacred ties of love and loyalty." In that heartfelt declaration, the Alpha and his mate sealed their destiny with a promise that would echo through the ages, a promise of redemption, a vow to reclaim the love once lost, and the unbreakable resolve to forge a future defined. Mending broken bonds. In the stillness that followed the tumultuous reversal, a quiet calm began to unfurl like a soft, healing mist over the ravaged clearing. The violent echoes of the battle faded into a distant memory, replaced by gentle whispers of recovery. The pack, still raw with loss yet tenderly aware of the newly forged alliance, slowly gathered together to tend to both wounds and souls. In that reflective silence, the Alpha and his mate found themselves surrounded by the muted murmurs of their kind, each heartbeat a quiet promise of renewal. In the cool aftermath, the Alpha's face, once etched with frustration and regret, softened as he carefully cradled his mate's hand. Their eyes met in a silent exchange full of unspoken apologies and mutual understanding. The air seemed to vibrate with the gentle hum of nature's own lament, a lullaby for the broken, yet resolute hearts. Tender words were spoken, each syllable a balm for old scars. "We will mend. We will heal together," the Alpha whispered, his voice low and soothing. His mate responded with a slight, hopeful smile as she rested her head gently against his shoulder. Their embrace became a symbol of a new chapter, where forgiveness and vulnerability could finally coexist. Around them, the pack began to engage in quiet acts of care. Several members, betas and guardians alike, moved with purpose, setting aside the weapons of conflict to attend to the injured. Their actions were graceful, almost ritualistic, as they cleaned wounds, wrapped injured limbs, and offered soft words of comfort. In one corner, a seasoned guardian soothed a crying pup, cradling the little one with both gentle hands and a tender voice that promised protection. The whole scene was a mosaic of care, a symphony of healing where each note was played with sincerity and hope. Children, too, played a crucial role in this healing tableau. Their laughter and cautious steps brought a lightness to the gloom, as if the very sound of youthful delight were an antidote to the lingering sadness. The Alpha, though burdened with the weight of past decisions, found solace in watching his Mate tuck a small child into a handmade bed near the pack's healing center. In these simple, heartfelt moments, the hard edges of their world softened. A moment later, the alpha's mate sat by a wounded elder, gently rubbing a small bandage over a cut, her eyes full of compassion as she listened to the quiet, ragged breaths of the recovering warrior. Each gesture, whether a soft word or a delicate touch, was a testament to the resilience of those bound by loyalty and love. The healing process extended beyond mere physical recovery. Emotional scars, deep and unyielding at first, were slowly addressed through intimate conversations and shared moments of vulnerability. In hushed tones around a makeshift fire at dusk, the elders recounted ancient stories of loss and triumph, intertwining their lessons with gentle reminders that every wound offers an opportunity to grow stronger. These gatherings, quiet yet profound, served to remind every morning thereafter, as the first light of dawn crept over the pine-covered horizon, the pack emerged as if reborn. They faced the day with a mixture of melancholy and determination, ready to honor their fallen while nurturing hope for tomorrow. The alpha and his mate often walked together beneath the open sky, their quiet conversations carried by the gentle breeze. They spoke not of past mistakes, but of the promise that lay ahead, a future where the bonds of kinship would create a protective embrace around all who mattered. Their shared mission was clear: to rebuild trust and renew the unspoken vow that they were a family, united by both blood and soul. In the midst of this slow but steady recovery, small signs of change surfaced. The once haunted eyes of the alpha grew brighter, reflecting the spark of a new beginning. His mate's laughter, though tempered by lingering sorrow, began to rise more frequently, weaving through the pack's collective routine like a healing chant. Together, they organized sessions where each member could share their stories, their voices a patchwork of the past and a chorus of hope for the future. In these discussions, the alpha softly declared, "We are not defined solely by our losses, but by our capacity to reclaim and remake ourselves." His words resonated with everyone, creating a shared moment of introspection that bound the pack even closer. By the time the sun dipped low into the twilight, casting a gold and amber glow over the territory, the entire pack felt the beginnings of a deep collective transformation. They had been through darkness and despair, yet here they stood, united in their commitment to healing and growth. The rituals of care, the soft murmur of shared memories, and the endless hope in their eyes promised that the wounds of the past would one day fade, giving way to a future of renewed strength and unity. As the night settled in and the stars blinked, above, the alpha gazed into the horizon with quiet resolve. "Tomorrow, we rise anew," he declared softly to his mate and the pack, a statement that was both a promise and a prayer. In the reflective silence that followed, one could almost feel that the darkness had been driven back, replaced by a tender glow of unity and hope. A new dawn for the pack. As the first light of day broke over the horizon, soft rays of golden sunlight bathed the clearing in a gentle, renewing glow, promising a fresh start after nights of relentless sorrow and tireless struggle. The pack, still recovering from its recent trials, gathered in a triumphant and unified assembly to celebrate not only survival, but the birth of new beginnings. There was a palpable sense of hope in the air, an unspoken vow that the path ahead would be paved with reconciliation, strength, and the enduring spirit of kinship. In the heart of the clearing, a grand ceremonial pyre had been carefully constructed, symbolizing the purification of old wounds and the celebration of those who had given their all. The flames danced gracefully, its flickering light casting vivid reflections upon the faces of pack members, whose eyes shone with a mixture of grief and renewed determination. The scent of burning wood and the faint, bittersweet aroma of incense mingled with the crisp morning air, a reminder of traditions held sacred by every member of the pack for generations. As the festivities began, the alpha, now a beacon of quiet authority and gentle reassurance, stood at the forefront. His eyes, filled with the wisdom of his experiences and softened by recent acts of redemption, met those of his mate, whose smile radiated both relief and the promise of unbreakable unity. Together, they embodied the resilience and compassion that had come to define their family. Every word exchanged between them was both a caress and a solemn commitment to safeguard the bonds that had been forged in the crucible of hardship. Around the ceremonial pyre, the pack moved in a meditative rhythm, sharing stories of loss and revival, of battles fought and friendships renewed. Elders recounted the legends of past warriors, their voices low and measured, recounting tales of valor that resonated deeply with the younger generation. The children, wide-eyed and full of innocent wonder, listened attentively as these timeless narratives served as both guidance and inspiration. Their laughter, a hopeful and contagious melody, filled the air as they darted among the adults, bridging the gap between youth and wisdom, fear and faith. Amidst the celebration, a musical cadence emerged, a harmonious blend of soft howls, rhythmic footfalls, and the murmur of heartfelt conversations. It was as if the entire pack was communicating in one vast, unspoken language of unity. The sound of clinking metal from ceremonial adornments and the rustle of fur served as a constant reminder of their wild heritage and the delicate balance they maintained between feral instinct and human sensitivity. Each sound, each gesture, echoed the shared determination to rise above the echoes of conflict and step into a future buoyed by loyalty and love. In the center of this jubilant gathering, the Alpha addressed the assembled pack in a voice that was both commanding and compassionate. "Today," he declared, "we do not merely remember the pain of our past. We celebrate the strength that arose from it, the promise of a new dawn that we have earned together." His words, carefully chosen and reverberating through the still air, stirred a deep collective emotion among all who listened. The celebratory banquet that followed was a fusion of rustic tradition and heartfelt camaraderie. Long tables laden with freshly prepared meats, fruits, herbs, and warm breads stretched beneath the high pines. Each bite was savored, not just for its nourishing quality, but for the symbol it held, a reminder that from the depths of tragedy, life had returned in its most vibrant and pure form. Smiles replaced tears as the pack feasted together, sharing not only food, but the quiet intimacy of a renewed family. In quiet corners, away from the lively chatter and the soft strains of music, small groups of pack members exchanged whispers of personal triumphs and future dreams. These intimate dialogues, a mother's tender promise to protect her young, an elder's wistful reminiscence of lost kin, a warrior's vow to honor the legacy of fallen comrades, wove together to form a vibrant tapestry that celebrated the collective spirit. Their voices, though varied in tone, resonated in unison. Forgiveness is the seed from which true strength blooms. Yet, in the midst of the celebration, an undercurrent of mystery lingered, a subtle reminder that every ending carries within it the seeds of new challenges. A stray, unanswered question, a soft, almost imperceptible whisper in the wind, hinted at secrets yet uncovered and destinies still to be written. What new adventures will call us forth from this dawn? The silence seemed to ask, inviting every listener to ponder the unknown possibilities that lay just beyond the familiar borders of their territory. As the day wore on and the sun reached its zenith, the pack embraced this moment of rebirth with hearts fortified by resilience. They knew that, despite the scars of past battles and the weight of loss, their unity was a beacon of hope that would guide them through the darkest storms. The Alpha and his mate, standing side by side, shared a look, a quiet, confident exchange that declared without a shadow of doubt, "We are family. We are united, and we will face the future together." In that powerful, sacred moment, every soul in the pack felt the promise of tomorrow, a tomorrow that shimmered with the light of redemption, carried on the gentle wings of hope, and encircled by the unwavering bond of a family reborn. What epic adventures await them as they step forward into the unknown, now strengthened by a love that is as relentless as it is healing. Only time will tell, and the mystery beckons us to follow their path into the great expanse of destiny.